The Khamar-Daban mountain range is located in the southern part of Lake Baikal in Russia. The range stretches for 420 kilometers, is 65 kilometers wide, and reaches a maximum altitude of 2,396 meters. Apart from the summer, the mountains were covered in snow all year round. Close to Lake Baikal, this region offers stunning scenery, with majestic snow-capped peaks attracting countless hiking and mountaineering enthusiasts. It is also considered one of the most beautiful places in Siberia. However, in this beautiful place, a bizarre and tragic mountain incident occurred, widely believed to be a supernatural event. The details of this incident were once highly classified by the Russian government. Hello everyone, this is Cat Archive, and I'm Cat. Join me as we delve into this mysterious mountain tragedy and explore why so many believe it to be a supernatural event. Moreno is a small town built around the train station. It is close to Lake Baikal and situated to the north of the Khamar-Daban mountain range. On Sunday, August 1st, 1993, many hikers gathered in this town. They were all eager to take advantage of the summer thaw and set out to climb the Khamar-Daban mountains. Among them was our group of protagonists, a bunch of young people from Kazakhstan. This mountaineering team from Kazakhstan consisted of 7 people. Their leader was a 41-year-old teacher named Ludmila Korovina, a seasoned hiker and mountaineering expert, and the head of an outdoor club. Korovina had been awarded the title of Master of Sports by the Soviet Union, earning the deep trust of her students' parents. During the summer holidays, parents would entrust their children to her to learn wilderness survival skills. This time, the mountaineering team came to the Khamar-Daban mountain range to undertake a week-long hiking expedition. Most members of the team were students from the school's mountaineering club, including 3 boys and 3 girls. The youngest was 15 years old, and the oldest was 24. The 3 boys were 23-year-old Alexander Krysin, 19-year-old Denis Shwashkin, and 15-year-old Timur Bapanov. Alexander, a 25-year-old student from Moscow State University of Technology, had been participating in various hiking and mountaineering clubs since the age of 12. He was the strongest and most physically fit member of the team. Alexander was also a child Korovina had seen grow up. Shortly before deciding to join the expedition, Alexander proposed to Korovina's daughter. Korovina was very fond of Alexander and had long considered him her prospective son-in-law. Denis, a 19-year-old, originally wasn't part of this climbing team. He got the opportunity to join the expedition because a student dropped out at the last minute. It's worth noting that Denis decided to participate in the climb without his parents' permission. At the time, his parents were on vacation, so Denis left a note at home saying, "I'm going mountain climbing, we'll be back soon." Timur, a 15-year-old born into a family of mountaineers, had been hiking and climbing with his family since he was very young. He was a passionate enthusiast of mountaineering activities and would always join any expedition organized by Korovina. Now let's take a look at the situation with the girls in the team. The 3 girls were 24-year-old Tatiana Filipenko, 17-year-old Valentina Utochenko, and 16-year-old Victoria Zelentsova. Among them, Valentina played a crucial role in the event that unfolded. Tatiana, 24 years old, had just graduated from university and was working as a secretary at a college. In her spare time, she didn't enjoy going to bars or shopping. Instead, she had a deep passion for hiking and mountaineering, especially long-distance expeditions. Valentina, 17, was studying at university in Kazakhstan, majoring in sports tourism. Her future plan was to become an excellent mountaineering club instructor, just like their leader, Korovina. Victoria, 16, had a history of breaking down and crying due to exhaustion during a previous mountaineering activity, which had led to a temper tantrum. Korovina was very displeased with such behavior and initially refused to let Victoria join this expedition. However, Victoria had the strong desire to hike in the Khamar-Daban mountains and had long dreamed of this adventure. She pleaded with her mother to call Korovina, and after repeatedly promising that she wouldn't lose her temper again, Korovina finally allowed Victoria to join the team. A year ago, Korovina had led her team on a challenging trek through the Tian Shan Mountains. The chosen route in the Tian Shan was quite difficult, requiring climbers to frequently use ropes and a variety of mixed climbing techniques. For this expedition in the Khamar-Daban mountains, Korovina decided to lower the difficulty level and avoid such a strenuous path. She selected a route that circled the Khamar-Daban mountains, ultimately leading to Sliwudyanka. This route spanned a total of 230 kilometers and likely wouldn't require the use of climbing ropes. For a team that had successfully completed the rigorous trek in the Tian Shan Mountains, this journey seemed much more relaxed. The group was brimming with confidence, treating this trek as more of a sightseeing adventure rather than a challenging expedition. At the same time, there were many other teams entering the mountains, including one led by Korovina's 16-year-old daughter, Natalia. Natalia's team chose a more complex route, so the two groups were not traveling the same path. However, they agreed to meet midway at Lake Patavoy Ozero, and then complete the rest of the journey together. Korovina's confidence in allowing her daughter to lead a team into the mountains on her own indicated their familiarity with the chosen routes. This also demonstrated their assurance in successfully completing the journey, reflecting the extensive experience and preparation that both Korovina and her daughter possessed. Before departure, Korovina called the local meteorological station to confirm the weather conditions for the next 7 days in the Khamar-Daban mountains. The staff on duty informed Korovina that the weather would be clear and sunny for the entire week, with no expected rainfall. On August 2, 1993, the two teams officially set off. The initial part of the journey went smoothly, with the team members enjoying the scenic views along the way and occasionally stopping to take photos. Before long, the two teams separated. Natalia's team would cross through the heart of the mountain range, heading directly towards the meeting point at Lake Patavoy Ozero. Meanwhile, Korovina's team took a simpler route, bypassing the mountain's interior and moving towards their destination on an easier path. As the two teams parted ways, Korovina repeatedly reminded her daughter to stay safe. Natalia, slightly impatient, assured her mother that she would be careful and then headed towards the heart of the mountain range. No one could have known that this would be the last time the mother and the daughter would see each other. After bidding farewell to her daughter, Korovina led her team forward along their predetermined route. Along the way, they would pass a place called Perevo-Langutetsky Varota, roughly the midway point from Marino to the designated meeting spot. After passing Perevo, they would ascend Mountain Canula, which stands at an elevation of 2,371 meters. Once they crossed this mountain, they would soon reach Lake Patavoy Ozero. A few days later, just as they entered Perevo, Korovina and her team noticed that it had started to drizzle. They thought the weather forecast might have been wrong, a possible occurrence in the unpredictable climate of mountainous regions. However, they were well prepared, each carrying a raincoat. After putting on their raincoats, they continued their journey. This minor setback was hardly an issue for such an experienced mountaineering team. In addition to their raincoats, everyone had brought a set of thick sweaters. To prevent the sweaters from getting wet, they had packed them in waterproof bags ahead of time. Their preparations were thorough, ensuring they had a plan to deal with any sudden drops in temperature. After crossing Perevo, the team began their ascent of Mountain Canula. By noon, Korovina's mountaineering team had reached an altitude of 2,000 meters. From this vantage point, they could see a vast expanse of mountains and grasslands, offering breathtaking views. However, the rain on the mountain was intensifying, accompanied by thunderstorms and strong winds. They needed to quickly cross the ridge and reach the forested area ahead, where the dense trees could provide shelter from the storm. The rain-soaked path was becoming increasingly muddy, making their progress more difficult. The team's pace slowed significantly compared to their original climbing plan. By 4 p.m., they had reached an altitude of 2,310 meters. They were very close to the summit. Just a bit further, and they could be over the top. Everyone rallied their spirits and pushed forward, determined to reach the summit. After a few more kilometers, the sky began to darken. The team's pace slowed further as the members started to feel exhausted. The temperature was around 10 degrees Celsius. Although it didn't feel extremely cold, the rain-soaked clothes were causing them to lose body heat rapidly. Korovina understood that if they continued like this, the team could be in danger. She decided to have everyone set up camp on the spot and spend the night on the mountain. They would rest and resume their journey at dawn after regaining their strength. But no one could have foreseen that this decision would lead to a tragic outcome for the entire mountaineering team. No one anticipated the disaster that was about to unfold. Let's shift our perspective to Korovina's 16-year-old daughter, Natalia. The next day, Natalia's team had successfully reached Lake Patavoy-Ozero, the agreed meeting point. Seeing that her mother hadn't yet arrived, Natalia decided to wait for them. As time passed, Natalia's team waited there for 2 full days, but there was no sign of her mother Korovina or her fiancé Alexander. Despite her mother's extensive mountaineering experience, Natalia couldn't help but worry. Natalia discussed with her teammates the possibility of waiting a bit longer. However, there were dissenting voices within the group as their supplies were limited. If they continued to wait and run out of food, they would face their own danger. Reluctantly, Natalia had to lead her team away. However, she couldn't stop worrying about her mother and fiancé, who had yet to arrive. She kept imagining that they were just a short distance away and would catch up with them soon. 16 days after their departure, on August 18th, Natalia successfully led her team to the destination, Sliwudyanka. However, her mother never arrived. This was entirely out of character for Korovina, who had never failed to reach her destination on time before. Natalia felt a deep sense of unease. For a professional mountaineer like her mother not to arrive as planned, something must have gone terribly wrong. Realizing this, Natalia immediately reported her mother's team missing to the local rescue department. However, due to adverse weather conditions, the rescue department did not initiate a search and rescue operation immediately. It wasn't until 3 days later, on August 21st, that a helicopter finally took off to begin the search in the Khamar-Daban mountains. By August 24th, 19 days had passed since Korovina and her team went missing. The rescue team's helicopter finally located the bodies of Korovina and 5 other team members not far from the summit of Mountain Kanula. However, one team member, Valentina, who we previously mentioned as a key figure, was still missing. Forensic investigation revealed that Korovina died of sudden cardiac arrest, while the remaining 5 team members succumbed to hypothermia. Additionally, all 6 individuals were found to be malnourished, with their livers and muscles lacking glycogen, indicating organ failure. No one could have imagined that such a beautiful mountain range would witness such a severe tragedy. The incident quickly drew widespread attention from the media and the public. Up to this point, one team member, Valentina, was still missing. Theoretically, she might still be alive. Consequently, various media outlets began searching for Valentina, believing that finding her would provide crucial insights into the entire incident. The influence of the media proved to be immense. A few days later, Valentina was indeed found in a hospital room, severely injured. The media quickly descended upon her, eager to ask her what exactly had happened on the mountain. During the interview, Valentina hesitantly began to recount the events of those fateful days. In August, the Khamar-Daban mountains were in the midst of summer, and the temperatures in the mountains weren't particularly low. On the day of the incident, Corvina led her group of 7 to Mountain Canula. As they prepared to reach the summit, darkness began to fall, and everyone was exhausted. Corvina decided that it would be best for everyone to set up camp where they were and rest for the night. However, the weather conditions were terrible. At 4 a.m., strong winds tore open the vent of their tent, allowing rain like small stones to pour in through the gap. Several male team members quickly used their sleeping bags to block the opening, while the others hurriedly tried to dry the rainwater. They held on until around 6 a.m., when the wind finally began to subside. Unfortunately, all the sleeping bags were soaked, leaving them damp and heavy. Some team members, weakened by the cold and wet conditions, began to show symptoms of nausea and vomiting. Everyone knew that they couldn't afford to stay in one place for too long. After a quick breakfast, they started to pack up their gear. Around 10 a.m., the team began their descent. To their surprise, snowflakes started to fall from the sky, and the temperature dropped sharply. Although everyone had some mountaineering experience, they had never faced such harsh weather conditions. Even the boys in the group couldn't help but complain about being wet, cold, and unable to find any landmarks, feeling completely lost and disoriented. At this point, Corvina quickly reassured everyone that despite enduring 3 days of heavy rain, they should be fine as long as they stuck to their original plan to descend the mountain. However, no one could have anticipated the imminent danger. The team's fittest member, Alexander, suddenly fell while they were moving. After being helped up by his companions, he appeared unsteady and unable to walk properly, eventually collapsing and losing consciousness. Realizing something was seriously wrong, Corvina decided to have the 2 other male team members lead the rest of the group forward, while she stayed behind to tend to Alexander. The 5 team members continued in the predetermined direction, but they hadn't gone far when they suddenly heard Corvina shouting for help from behind. Hearing the cries for help, the team quickly turned back. By the time they returned, Alexander had regained consciousness, but was curled up on the ground, convulsing and vomiting white foam. The 24-year-old team member Tatiana hurriedly set up a canopy, and the other team members rushed over to assist. Valentina and Corvina were attending to Alexander together. Suddenly, Alexander began to have a severe nosebleed that they couldn't stop, and his eyes, wide with terror, started bleeding as well. As they struggled to help him, Alexander's pupils began to dilate, and his face turned pale. Valentina could feel his body temperature dropping rapidly. Moments later, Corvina, with deep sorrow, announced that Alexander no longer had a pulse. Everyone was plunged into shock and grief. No one could have imagined that Alexander would lose his life in just a few minutes. While they were still reeling from the shock, 16-year-old Victoria suddenly sat down on the grass. They initially thought Victoria was just terrified and had collapsed. Just as Valentina went over to help her, Victoria suddenly sprang up and in a frenzy started biting Valentina's arm, growling and making guttural sounds, resembling someone having a rabies attack. Valentina, terrified, turned around to call for help from her companions. But what she saw next was even more horrifying. 24-year-old Tatiana was repeatedly smashing her head against the rock, as if trying to break it open. Meanwhile, 19-year-old Dennis had quickly hidden behind a large boulder and was desperately trying to crawl into his sleeping bag. It seemed as though everyone had been frightened by some terrifying unseen force. Valentina pushed Victoria away and ran towards Korovina. To her horror, she found that Korovina was now experiencing the same symptoms as Alexander, foaming at the mouth and convulsing on the ground. Nearby, she noticed another person lying on the ground. Upon closer inspection, she realized it was the youngest boy, Timur. Valentina tried to shake Timur awake, but no matter how hard she pushed, he didn't respond. It appeared that Timur had also lost his life. Terrified and in shock, Valentina suddenly felt a kick from Dennis, who shouted, "Hurry, get down the mountain." Valentina didn't have time to think. She grabbed her backpack and tumbled down the mountain. At first, Dennis was close behind her, but after a while, Valentina realized he had disappeared as well. It felt as though she had encountered some supernatural force. She had no idea what had just happened. In a matter of moments, all her companions had inexplicably fallen to the ground. Terrified that the same fate might befall her, she didn't dare to look back and kept running towards the forest. After a long while, Valentina finally regained her composure. Feeling a chill, she put on her spare sweater and crawled into her sleeping bag. She spent the entire day in a state of fear and cold, trying to stay warm and make sense of the terrifying events she had just experienced. The next morning, Valentina woke up from her troubled sleep. Now calmer, she quickly realized that she had no food supplies with her. After the terrifying events of the previous day, she was all alone and completely lost. She made a bold decision. To survive, she had to retrace her steps and return to the site of the incident to gather some food supplies. Upon returning to the site, Valentina saw that everyone remained in the same positions as the day before, confirming that none had survived. Without lingering, she quickly gathered a compass and some food from her fallen teammates. Then she began her solitary descent, determined to find help and ensure her survival. For 4 days and nights, Valentina wandered alone in the mountains. She eventually reached the Nesnaya River, but still saw no signs of human habitation. By this time, she began to feel unwell, with a fever and persistent dry cough, and her consciousness started to fade. Valentina feared that she might soon succumb to the same fate as her teammates. But she didn't want to leave this world in such a dirty state. Valentina, despite her physical discomfort, forced herself to crawl into the icy river water, intending to clean herself up before slowly embracing what she believed to be her imminent death. It was precisely this determination that saved her life. At that moment, she saw a kayak docked at the bend of the river. Valentina felt a surge of hope and, using the last of her strength, began shouting and waving her arms. Fortunately, the people in the kayak, a pair of tourists from Ukraine, saw Valentina. They paddled over and rescued the nearly lifeless Valentina, bringing her to safety. This was the entirety of Valentina's account. After her harrowing story was told, the media quickly picked it up, leading to widespread coverage. However, this also sparked more suspicion and curiosity about the incident. As people sought to learn more, Valentina suddenly disappeared without a trace. Even the hospital and her family had no idea where she had gone. The public has put forward various theories regarding this incident, including malnutrition, hypothermia, neurotoxins, poisonous mushrooms, and curses. Let's first discuss the theory that malnutrition caused the deaths. Previously, we mentioned that after the discovery of the 6 bodies, the forensic examination revealed that all the bodies showed signs of malnutrition. Yuri Golias, the deputy leader of the rescue team, was interviewed and stated that he had known the leader Korovina for a long time. He described Korovina as a very strict person. He recounted an incident when he encountered Korovina north of Lake Baikal. At that time, Korovina was accompanied by two boys who appeared to be around 16 years old. These boys looked extremely exhausted. One of them was so weak that he could barely walk and couldn't even lift the machete used for clearing the path. Seeing the boys, Yuri quickly gave them bread and milk. The boys devoured the food like starving tigers, as if they hadn't eaten in days. Korovina, however, remained calm and mentioned that she planned to open a survival school to teach children how to survive in the wild. She also said that in the future expeditions, she intended to bring minimal clothing and food to toughen their willpower. Yuri was very angry when he heard this, believing that Korovina was mistreating the children. During the search at the incident site, Yuri saw a similar situation. They found only an empty meat can. Yuri suspected that Korovina might have forced the children to share this single can of meat on the windy and rainy mountaintop. He had hoped to find traces of other food remnants during the search, but unfortunately, there was only this empty can. Yuri believed that, based on the analysis of the victims' causes of death and the conditions at the scene, it was highly likely that Korovina's obsessive survival philosophy led to this tragedy. The media also intended to interview Valentina to verify this perspective. However, as we mentioned earlier, Valentina seemed to have vanished without a trace, and no one could locate her. The second theory is that the deaths were caused by hypothermia. Regarding the forensic analysis that the team members died due to hypothermia, the rescue personnel on the scene indeed observed similar conditions. When the victims' bodies were found, 3 of them had torn off their outer clothing and were only wearing thin underwear, while 2 others were barefoot, appearing as if they were very hot. Although this seems contrary to the cold-induced hypothermia, this condition actually aligns with the symptoms of it. When the human body's temperature drops below 32 degrees Celsius, the hypothalamus, which regulates body temperature, becomes confused and sends out false signals of being overheated. As a result, people can uncomfortably start to strip off their clothes to cool down. However, the conclusion of hypothermia left people even more puzzled. According to the rescue personnel, the victims' backpacks contained dry spare sweaters that they could have worn to stay warm and prevent hypothermia, but they didn't. Moreover, the team had experienced the leader, Korovina, who, along with her daughter, was very familiar with the Khamar-Daban mountains. Just a 30 minutes walk from their campsite was a sheltered area, a wind-protected campsite. So why did Korovina choose not to go there to set up camp? This raised further questions about the circumstances leading to the tragedy and why such experienced team failed to take seemingly obvious precautions. In summary, considering the above evidence, people began to question the theory that hypothermia was the cause of death. At this point, a third, bolder hypothesis emerged. The mountaineering team might have been affected by neurotoxins. Based on Valentina's account, several of the deceased exhibited symptoms such as foaming at the mouth, convulsions, and even bleeding from the nose and eyes. These symptoms closely resemble those caused by neurotoxins. Korovina's sudden cardiac arrest also aligns with this hypothesis. Coincidentally, the Soviet Union began developing a neurotoxin called Novichok in 1971. The symptoms caused by this chemical weapon closely match those observed in several of the victims. Moreover, production of this neurotoxin ceased in 1993, the year of the incident. Proponents of this theory believe that the government was conducting final experiments in the mountains, which led to a leak of neurotoxin. However, the Khamar-Daban mountains were in peak tourist season at the time. Opponents of the neurotoxin theory argue that the Soviet military would not conduct experiments in such a popular area. Additionally, if neurotoxins were involved, why wasn't Valentina affected? Later, upon further investigation, it was discovered that this type of neurotoxin is water-soluble and can take up to 4 months to degrade in the natural environment. If this were the case, the timing and location of the military experiments might not necessarily coincide with the mountaineering team's presence. It is possible that the military conducted experiments in the mountains 4 months earlier, and subsequent heavy rains and strong winds transported the neurotoxin to the area where the mountaineers were. Once the sun came out and heated the soil, the toxins could have vaporized, causing the team members to be poisoned. This hypothesis also explains why Alexander only showed symptoms after falling. Apart from Valentina, some members were sitting on the ground or hiding behind rocks, giving them more exposure to the toxins in the soil. Valentina, on the other hand, was continuously moving during the poisoning process, which may have prevented her from being as deeply affected by the toxins as the others. At the same time, this hypothesis also provides a plausible explanation for why Valentina disappeared after being rescued. It's possible that she was taken by security agencies and made to sign a confidentiality agreement, preventing her from sharing further details about the incident. The fourth hypothesis is accidental poisoning from consuming toxic mushrooms. Valentina mentioned that the team members, following Korovina's instructions, were collecting a rare high-altitude plant along their journey. Their extended stay at high altitudes was due to their busy efforts in gathering this plant. Indeed, the rescue team later found large quantities of this plant in the victims' backpacks. Valentina also stated that she survived her escape by consuming this plant along the way. It's possible that some team members accidentally mixed poisonous mushrooms with the plants they were collecting. The next morning during breakfast, they may have mistakenly eaten the toxic mushrooms, leading to collective poisoning. This hypothesis aligns with the survivors' descriptions of behaviors such as head banging against rocks and frenzied biting. However, this theory has its flaws. If the poisoning occurred during breakfast, it doesn't explain why Valentina survived. Since she ate the same plants to stay alive during her escape, she should have also been affected if the plants were indeed mixed with toxic mushrooms. This inconsistency raises questions about the validity of this hypothesis. The fifth and most chilling hypothesis is that of a curse. This theory was put forward by Yuri, the deputy leader of the search team. Yuri believed that the tragedy might have been caused by a shamanic curse related to the plants the mountaineering team was collecting. These plants were considered sacred by the local Mongolian people, who viewed them as a gift from the heavens. According to their beliefs, humans shouldn't greedily harvest these plants, and certainly not for commercial purposes. Valentina's account mentioned that the team had been continuously gathering this sacred plant while on the mountain. Yuri theorized that this act of greed and disrespect towards the sacred gift had invoked a curse from the heavens, resulting in the tragic fate that befell the team. In fact, for the local Mongolian people, the mountaineering team's accident in the Khamar-Daban mountains was not surprising. In the Mongolian language, Khamar-Daban means terrible rocks. The area even had ancient altars used for sacrifices. To the local people, the Khamar-Daban mountains were not a beautiful tourist destination, but rather a sacred and ominous place of worship. These 5 theories represent the main speculations about the incident. However, none of these theories can be confirmed, and the only eyewitness, Valentina, has disappeared. As a result, this mountaineering tragedy remains a mystery, and what truly happened to the team on that fateful expedition is something no one will ever know. Until 2019, when Valentina and Korovina's daughter Natalia appeared together on a television program, they commemorated the tragic event and shared their memories of the mountaineering disaster. During this interview, Natalia provided additional details about the incident. Before the mountaineering expedition began, local residents had warned the team, saying, "This year the mountains are very unusual. A huge brown bear has been frequently spotted. It even attempted to intercept passing trains." The implication was that the mountains were unsafe and that the team should consider canceling their climb. However, the mountaineering team did not heed this warning. After entering the mountains, Natalia frequently saw a huge elk appearing and disappearing in the forest. These elk seemed to follow the mountaineering team along their route, causing them to take a long detour at one point. Later, as the team passed through a valley, they found it filled with fallen trees, indicating a recent mudslide. The team members were deeply shaken by the sight. They realized that if they hadn't detoured because of the elk, they might have been caught in the mudslide. Natalia often saw the elk in her dreams. She firmly believed that the reason she did not face the same danger as her mother was because this elk had saved her. In the interview, Valentina expressed that she didn't believe the mountaineering disaster was caused by their leader, Korovina. On the contrary, she described Korovina as a highly professional leader. Valentina mentioned that the team's daily meals were precisely calculated, and no one held any resentment towards Korovina. They also tried to light a campfire on the mountain, but due to the extremely harsh weather conditions, their attempts failed. As a result, they had no choice but to endure the cold throughout the night. Regarding the truth of the mountaineering disaster, even as a survivor, Valentina didn't fully understand what had caused it. She only knew how everyone around her had suddenly collapsed and died, but was unsure of the exact reasons behind it. The bizarre nature of the incident, with everyone seemingly dying in an instant, led both Valentina and Natalia to believe that the cause of the deaths was not hypothermia or neurotoxins, but rather some supernatural factors. Valentina suggested that perhaps people should show more reverence for nature and avoid disturbing the peace and harmony of the mountains and forests. As we conclude this episode, we are left with more questions than answers. The truth behind the Khamar-Daban tragedy remains elusive, shrouded in mystery and speculation. Whether it was due to natural causes, human error, or something beyond our understanding, the events of that fateful expedition continue to captivate and haunt us.